Jamie Floyd. He's back. He's in ICU. He's back in ICU. He went in yesterday. It's amazing how God works. Yesterday he had to go in for a checkup and blood work. He goes in, and that's the day that everything crashes with him. Blood back in his system, in his urine and everything else, and his system crashes. So they were there, they did the testing, and they said, we're going to keep you here. And he went in for dialysis today and everything else, so he's back there. They're going to put him back onto that chemo treatment for his kidneys and that. Not that he's got cancer, they're using the chemo treatment to remedy whatever's wrong with the kidneys. So there's that, there's Mrs. Jamie, and then there's also Miss Lindy, I beg your pardon, Lindy Dunbar. Her tests came back and they're not as good as what they'd hoped for, so she's not going to be able to go through this last treatment, which is the protocol treatment, so they're going to hold off on that before they can put her through that. So please keep her in prayer. And then with those two people that are ill, Miss Sandra is looking after Miss Lindy, so she's running herself ragged as she normally does, so please keep her in prayer. And then also Miss Kathy Floyd, she's going back and forth to the hospital and staying overnight, certain nights with Mr. Jamie. And then Shell, Florence Nightingale here, she's staying over at Miss Kathy's to look after Kathy's mom. She's not doing too well. So I need prayer because nobody's looking after me. Who's looking after you? Thanks a lot. So yeah, with that, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father God, we thank you so much for the blessing of your word. Lord, you've told us over and over again that you've hidden gems in this word, and it's to our glory to search these things out. I pray that would be the case tonight, Lord. I really ask just for the presence of your Spirit, just for the miraculous way that you open Scripture up to us. And I pray as well, Lord, that you'd open up our hearts to the Scriptures tonight, to really hear from you, that you'd speak into our lives, into the very situations that we find ourselves in presently, and just where we are with our walk with you. May you speak into our lives with regards to that tonight, Lord. And just as we dig into these appointed times, may we be very, very aware that you have a plan and a purpose for each one of us, appointed times to get things done. And Lord, that you just keep us sensitive to the leading and guiding of your Spirit. So we thank you in advance for what you're going to do. We also just lift up those that are sick and needing a touch from you, Lord. Also just those that are caregivers, that you touch them just to strengthen and encourage them, Lord. And also, Lord, those that are still paralyzed by this whole corona thing. I really ask, Lord, that they would hear from you directly, that they would tap into the peace that you give, the peace that surpasses understanding, knowing that they are in the center of your hand, and you have them in times of needs and times of troubles, that they don't have to fear. We thank you for this, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. So, I'm going to backtrack a little bit tonight, and we're going to pick it up. We've been in Leviticus chapter 23, and it deals with, my Bible entitles the feasts of the Lord. The feasts, as I pointed out, is a mistranslation, and the word feast is actually appointed time. So it's the appointed times of God. And God, in this chapter, he does it previously. This is a reiteration of these feasts, or these appointed times. Leviticus chapter 23. God, at this juncture, he points out now 7 different appointed times. And I can hear that. And the 7 feasts, or these 7 appointed times, we found that if I move further back, that ringing went away. So, I don't know, I guess the closer to the cross I get, the better. It's all about. There's hope for me yet. But these 7 appointed times, these 7 feasts, can get broken into 2 sections. There are the spring feasts and the fall feasts. And just like just about everything in the Bible, the Old Testament is always a picture of what the New Testament speaks about. So the New Testament is like an adult novel The Old Testament is almost like a kid's comic book with pictures. So the Old Testament creates these pictures with words in our minds, okay? So in these fall feasts and these spring festivals, the spring feasts are always a joyous celebration type occasion. And spring is always new life, something's coming, something's birthing. Fall is always just before winter, death, hard times, famine, that kind of thing. So that's a picture in your mind. So the first fall that we deal with is going to be, as I said, the spring feast. And there what we found, the first one, well, the first three actually are almost grouped together as one. Interesting that 3 are one, that should ring a bell. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, okay? But here, the first three, we've got Passover, unleavened bread, and then the first fruits. Passover, in the Old Testament, what happened, that's when the Hebrew people are redeemed. That's when God takes them out of Egypt. That's the night that the death angel flies over. And by the painting of a cross on the doorposts, they didn't even realize they were doing it. They were just told to paint the doorposts with the blood. They actually are forming a cross. And that cross is what saves them even before the cross was known to mankind. And in picturing typology, we see later on Christ on the cross on the very same day as this Passover festival. Okay, so there's a mind blower right there. A festival or an appointed time and a historic occasion happens. And thousands of years later, Christ goes on the cross on the very same day. Not only that, he's put onto the cross at an appointed time, 9 o'clock in the morning. The sky goes black, 12 o'clock. 9 o'clock in the morning is the first call to prayer for the Jewish people to the temple. And out on a hill above where the temple stood, there Christ is put on the cross. 12 o'clock, when they're going to have the Passover sacrifice, that's when the sky goes black, dark. It's almost like God says, okay, I'm going to give you guys a time out right now. Have a little bit of darkness to think about this for a while. I don't know why, that keeps on coming up in my mind. I'm not saying that's scriptural, that's just my mind. And the Christ that the Jewish people were rejecting was hanging up on a cross, yet they were going through the rituals of church. They're going through the sacrifice and the prayers and all the rest of it, and yet they just put Christ on a cross. And he's hanging on the cross above the temple. And they don't even realize it. So at 12 o'clock, when they took to now have the sacrifice, boom, it goes black. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the second time of prayer, 9, 12, and 3, those are the church prayer times or calls to. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that's when Jesus turns around and says, it's finished. And he gives up his life. Exact times, exact day. So when God says, these are my appointed times, I don't think he's joking. I think he means these are my appointed times to the second. Interesting, Jesus turns around and says, no man knows the day or the hour. But he says, don't be deceived. You should know just the general time periods of that. So we kind of got into this and we started looking at all the different things in the Bible that happen on these appointed times. And we started seeing there's a pattern. Everything in the Bible is a pattern. So the next one, which is, you've got the Passover. The very next day, I beg your pardon, that's the other thing that I wanted to say. Verse 5 in chapter 23, it says, on the 14th day of the first month. So the first month here is Nisan or Abib. Okay? Nisan is now becomes the first month. And if you go back to the Exodus story on the Passover, you'll see God says to the people, this is going to be your first day of the year. This is going to be the new calendar, as it were. So this right here is the start of their redemption calendar. They've got a civil calendar as well. I pointed this out last time. Much like we've got our normal calendar, our civil calendar, which starts on January 1st, then we've got a school calendar, a tax calendar, and all these other calendars that go with it, okay? So too with the Jewish people, okay? So this is their redemption calendar, the day that they were redeemed from Egypt, brought out from slavery. You and I have a redemptive calendar as well. The day that I was saved, that's my redemptive calendar. That's my birthday, if you would. That is the first day that I was reborn, born again. Okay, that's my redemptive calendar. So God here saying, okay, so on the 14th day of the first month, at twilight is the Lord's Passover. On the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So the next day, so Christ dies on the 14th. The 15th is unleavened bread. And we saw in that the fulfillment of that Old Testament is when they left Egypt with no yeast in the bread. God's basically saying to these guys, hey, get out of Dodge and get out quick. Don't allow your bread to rise. Don't put yeast in it. Don't wait for it to rise. Just take flat bread and get out. In the future, now these people will celebrate this and they'll have flat bread. Why? So it's a reminder of, hey, we were prepared to eat flat bread rather than stay in bondage. So too with us. So many times I'll hear a Christian say, man, those were the good old days. Remember when we just used to go down to the river and just drink and drink and drink and drink, and man, that was the good old days. We were out partying all night doing this, good old days. No, they weren't. The good old day was followed by a good old morning the very day, and that wasn't good. I can attest to that. What comes the next morning, the repercussions and everything, not good at all. So going without, the significance of that flat bread, going without, you did so for a reason, because you were freed up from the bondage. You don't have to be held captive to that anymore. Okay? So, and then Christ turns around and he says, I am the bread of life. He fulfills that one as well. Day 3 is now the Feast of First Fruits. Okay? And that one there is, if you look at verse 10 of chapter 23, it says, when you come into the land which I give you and reap its harvest. So that feast, these Hebrew people out in the desert, they don't get to celebrate it. In fact, they don't get to celebrate it for another 40 years because they're not in the promised land yet. And the promised land in typology, in picture form, for us is heaven. That's the promised land. We've been redeemed out of Egypt. We're now in this wilderness wandering here on earth, getting ready for the promised land. Okay, so too with these Jewish people or these Hebrew people. I don't want to say the Israelites yet because they're not in the land of Israel yet. Israel, the word Israel means governed by God. So when they get into the promised land, they are governed by God, and that's a day I'm looking forward to. Because just think about this: the day you wake up in heaven, that's the day the battle starts. I don't have to battle with, my mind went there, that guy just cut me off and I'm thinking this right now. You don't have that war anymore. It's done. You're locked in. So there's a certain peace that awaits, especially if you're somebody that struggles with just yourself, as it were. I think Paul put it beautifully. It's not him that's sinning, but it's basically the sinner that's in him that's sinning. So then, as we spoke about on that third day, after Christ was crucified, third day, what happens? He's resurrected, right? And then Paul puts it this way, he says, Christ is our first fruits. So we see the fulfillment of that as well. I'm laboring these points for a reason, we'll see why now. The next one that we come to is now a little bit further on. In fact, it's 50 days later, it's Pentecost. Pentecost from the Greek meaning 50. The Jewish word for that is Shabbat, and it also means Feast of Weeks. That's Shabbat. And they are to count 7 weeks. So 7 sevens are 49, and then on the 50th, the next day, that's when this festival begins, this Feast of Weeks. And if you go to a Jewish person and you ask them, what is Shabbat to you? What does it mean? They will turn around and they'll say to you, that's when the nation of Israel was birthed. Now, God gave promises to Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac. But he never gave them a deed. He never gave them a contract. What I mean by that? If you go and look in Exodus, right in the beginning of Exodus, Moses gets called up onto the mountain. And God gives him 10 Commandments. It's a contract. Go and look at the 10 Commandments. There's a whole bunch of, you shall not do this, and you shall not do that. And it's a contract. God's saying, I will be your God, and you have to do this, this, and this. There's a contract between the two. That's what Moses got. Interesting, there's a lot of debate as to this whole thing with contracts, because with the contract, obviously I keep one and whoever else I'm making the contract with, they get the other one, right? What did Moses do with his half of the contract? He trashed it. He went back up and what? He got a second copy. Well, he had to write it down himself. I mean, God made him do that, and I guess it wasn't that easy, but he had to chisel the stone and all the rest of it and take it up. And he gets the second copy of the contract. Interesting, why does he get two copies? How come God doesn't keep one? I think God knew way in advance that they weren't going to be able to keep their half of the contract. And he makes provision for that as well, long before they even break the contract. So here there's this contract given to them. Okay? So from the Jewish mind, Pentecost, or the Feast of Weeks, is the birth of the Jewish nation. But now in the New Testament, if we're going to have a look at the book of Acts, actually, I just want to go back to this quickly. In Exodus, where he gets the Ten Commandments. Here we go. When he gets the Ten Commandments here, at the end of it, when you read through all of what the Ten Commandments are, so it's in chapter 20, in verse 18 it says, "Now all the people witnessed thunderings, the lightning flashes, the sound of a trumpet." How many caught that the first time around when we were going through Exodus? The sound of a trumpet and the mountains smoking. And when the people saw it, they trembled and they stood afar off. That's important, and you'll see why now. So there's the sound of a trumpet with that. So now, if we go through to the book of Acts, while you're going to the book of Acts, I'm going to talk some more. In the book of Acts, you'll see there another day of Pentecost. And in the book of Acts, with the day of Pentecost here, it says here in chapter 2 of the book of Acts, it says, "When the day of Pentecost had fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound." It wasn't a wind, it was just merely a sound. Remember the Ten Commandments, what did the people witness? They witnessed, they heard, and they even heard sound like a trumpet, okay? So they're hearing the sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled the whole house where they were sitting. And then it goes on and it talks about, in verse 4, "And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak with other tongues, as the Spirit gave them utterance." Then it goes on and it lays out that all the nations were present. Now, in this time period, it was believed that there were 70 different nations across the world. You'll see that also in some of the offerings, there's a place there where they offer 70 bulls. The reason they do that is for one for each of the nations. Okay, Tower of Babel, 70 different languages. The 70 comes up over and over again. Okay, so now we start to see, there's a tie-in here between Pentecost, Old Testament, where the nation of Israel was birthed and they got the Ten Commandments, and here on Pentecost in the book of Acts, after the death and resurrection of Christ, and now we see the birth not of the Jewish nation, but of the church. So before this point, there was Jew, Gentile. Gentile, the word Gentile simply means anybody that's not a Jew and does not believe in Yahweh, the Jewish God Yahweh. Okay. Then with the birth of the church, you get the Holy Spirit and you get the birth of the church, and that person believes in Yahweh, Father God, but also in Jesus Christ. Now the Jewish person also believes in the Messiah. They just don't believe that the Messiah has come yet. They reject the Messiah. Okay? So here on Pentecost, now is the birth of the church. So that's what this Feast of Weeks, Shavuot, is signifying, because as we pointed out in verse 17 of chapter 23, it says there, "You shall bring from your dwellings 2 loaves of bread, one signifying Jew and the church." That's where we're going now. what happened to the Gentile? Did they miraculously disappear? You see, that's what the Bible is about. It's very, very specific. It deals with specifics. It doesn't deal with the inconsequential. So the Gentile is no longer a concern anymore. Because, as I've said to you before, there's either saints and there's ain'ts. You're either of Christ or you're not. That's your decision. So too with the Bible. It's dealing with Jews and it's dealing with the church. Those that choose to reject Christ, well, that's their business. It's not their story. That's not what this Bible is about. So that's what we're dealing with now in the Feast of Weeks. This next feast is the one that we camped on last time. And this is the Feast of Trumpets. Okay? Now, notice this in verse 23 of chapter 23. It says, "Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, on the first day of the month." Okay, now that 7th month is, on the Jewish calendar, is Tishri. Tishri, remember I said to you they got two calendars? One is their redemptive calendar, one is the civil calendar. Tishri was the first, was their January in their civil calendar. Okay? So that was the original beginning of the year for them. So now in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, there will be a Sabbath rest, and there will be the blowing of trumpets. There's a trumpet again, okay? So on the first of the 7th month, there's going to be a trumpet that's blown, and it's the shofar. We went into a lot of different scripture last week with regards to the rapture, or a prophecy with regards to when the rapture is going to happen. Not the date, that's not what I was trying to get to, but just that it is going to happen and the time period that it happens in terms of eschatology, in the sense of we're in the church age now, we're coming to an end of the church age. The next thing on the calendar is going to be the rapture, which also starts then the tribulation period. So there's this trumpet on the first day. Now, that was the other thing that came out of that. That Feast of Trumpets, first day. As we went through the calendar there, birth of Christ. If you didn't catch that, you can ask me afterwards. The next one, and this, remember now, is the fall festivals, right? This is the second of the first fall of the fall. This is the second of the last three festivals, which are the fall festivals. Okay? So this next festival now, the Day of Atonement. Atonement, what is atonement? The easiest way to remember it, at one with God. Paul puts it this way, always keep a short account with the Lord. If you've messed up with God, go back and say sorry immediately. Don't let it build up and build up and build up. Man, I messed up today, I might as well mess up tomorrow. And I'm now messed up big time, so I guess he doesn't want to speak to me today, I'll just carry on sinning and doing what I'm doing. Before you know it, you've gone so far down the road, now it's kind of difficult to get back. So we think. But the scripture says to us, just enter into the throne of grace. Boldly, enter boldly into the throne of grace. That's what it says. So it doesn't matter how badly you've messed up. At some point, you just turn around. It's not like you've walked away. God is still in the same place where He's at, and that's right next to you. Just turn around and say, okay, Lord, I've messed up, I'm sorry. So keep a short account with God. So this Day of Atonement now, from the Jewish perspective, is Yom Kippur, the Day of Covering. Remember the scapegoat? We spoke about that a while ago. There's two goats. One gets sent into the desert, and the other one gets sacrificed. The one that gets sent into the desert, that's got all your sins on it, and off it goes, right? Okay, so we've got now this Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur. It's also known as Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year on their civil calendar. Okay, so it's a big happy day as well. But, and here's the but, this Day of Atonement doesn't start like it says here in the Bible. In verse 26 it says, "And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Also the 10th day of the 7th month shall be the Day of Atonement." Notice that he links this day, this festival, and the previous one. It says there also the 10th day. So we go back to the first one, the Feast of Trumpets. It says, "In the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you shall have a Sabbath rest." This is the day of the blowing of the trumpets. Then he goes on in verse 27. "Also the 10th day of the 7th month shall be the Day of Atonement." So in other words, that Feast of Trumpets as it is. They blew that trumpet, and today, in the Jewish culture today, they still do this on the first of the 7th month. They blow this trumpet, and the blowing of the trumpet starts off this Yom Kippur. And what it does is it puts them on notice, hey, there's 10 days, and then the Day of Atonement. For the first 9 days, they are now to reflect on all the stuff they've done wrong and keep that short list with God and get right. And then the Day of Atonement comes, and then there's the festival. So now we're going to get into it. Okay, so, that was an intro. So verse 27. Also the 10th day of this 7th month shall be the Day of Atonement. So this is our Tishri. This is about September, October on our calendar. They're dealing with the lunar calendar, so it moves around on our solar calendar. Okay. It goes on and says there, it shall be a holy convocation for you. That's a gathering. And you shall afflict your souls and offer an offering back by fire to the Lord. You shall afflict your souls. That's all it says. Nowhere else in the Bible does it go into detail about this afflicting of your souls, what it is. Okay? So what happened is the Jewish people jumped on this and they said, afflicting my soul. This must be fasting. And then if you go into the writings, you'll see that it goes a little bit further. It's anything that brings you pleasure. Afflicting your soul. Stay away from that. So in this 10-day period, or the 9-day prior to Yom Kippur, they are to take time out and deprive themselves of stuff that brings joy, food, drink, whatever it is. Deprive yourself of that and spend that time focusing on where you are with God and what you've done wrong. So too, with the scapegoat in that, remember the priest went into the holy place. When he came out and he laid his hands on the goat, he laid his hands on the goat and he pronounced sin by sin all the sins of the nation of Israel. And then the goat was set free. So at that point, you sitting there and he announced whatever, he announces meth addiction, whatever the sin is, okay? You are now set free and you've got a relief or a release of that guilt for the next year. Until the next day, or until the next year when this whole festival takes place again. Paul turns around and he says, no. What the blood of bulls and goats couldn't do, Christ did. And it's a one-time deal, you're done. So now, why do we keep on going back to God and saying sorry and sorry and sorry and sorry for the things that I've already done in the past? Is that biblical? And yet every time that we offer communion, that's what I hear from the pulpit. Sit down and think about what you've done wrong. And no. Who's the one that's whispering that in your ear? It's not God. It's not the Holy Spirit. Because I know that God and the Holy Spirit and Christ are all one. And God says that I put your sins as far as the east is from the west. In fact, I don't remember them anymore. So if you can't remember them and He's put them away and He's forgiven you, who's reminding you? The accuser of the brethren. That's what Satan's called. He's the accuser of the brethren. So why, from the pulpit, do we encourage people to not dwell on their sins? No. If there's something present, current, that you've done wrong, by all means, turn around and say, yes, Lord, okay, I acknowledge I've messed up. I've chosen to do this. And you keep that short account. So here too, this afflicting your souls. Turn to Isaiah chapter 58, verse 4. I want to get into this afflicting souls a little bit. Isaiah chapter 58. Just flip your Bible right over into the middle, and you should be at Isaiah. Roughly 58 as well. You look like a pro. It's one of the few books I know. In Isaiah chapter 58, the nation of Israel at this point was straying far from God. And yet, they had their temple. They had their priests. They had the sacrificial system. They had all the appearances of good church people. I guess in today's world we could say they had their cross around their neck, they had their fish stick on their bumper, and I don't know what other symbols. Okay? And they had their Bibles clutched under their arms, kind of thing. So by all appearances, they were good Christian people. Okay? But look at what God says here. Isaiah 58, it says that, cry out and spare not, lift up your voice like a trumpet. There's a trumpet again. And tell my people their transgressions. So God's saying here to Isaiah, you are going to go and announce this with your voice like a trumpet. The trumpet was blown for 2 occasions. The first was to draw people in. And the drawing of people in was normally for church. The reading of scriptures, what they call here our holy convocation. The other reason the trumpet was blown was for war. So God is saying to Isaiah, hey, go and lift up your voice like a trumpet. I'm declaring war on the people. He's not messing around, okay? But look what he says here. He says, now go and tell the people their transgression, and the house of Jacob their sins. Verse 2, yet they seek me daily. Remember, the Jewish people had to come to church 3 times a day. 9, 12, and 3, right? And they delight to know my ways. They want to read the scriptures. They want to hear the scriptures being read. They want to hear Bible stories. And don't just think about this in a condescending way to, oh, that wicked Jewish person. Relate this back to you and me right now in present day times. That's kind of how I see the Bible. So, they seek me daily, they delight to know my ways. As a nation, they did righteousness. One of the most righteous nations, especially when I was an outsider, to me was America. Because America is so giving with regards to just poverty and charities and all sorts of things. It's amazing how giving this nation is. It still is to me. It blows my socks off. So they did righteousness, righteous acts, okay? And they did not forsake the ordinance of their God. So remember the ordinance? 10 Commandments? What these guys, the law? These guys got to a point where they worshipped the law rather than the lawgiver. What do we say here in America? One nation? Are we? And we've got God's laws, but I mean, we kind of modify them every time they don't suit us. So then he goes on, he says, they ask of me the ordinances of justice. They take delight in approaching God. So here, going to the temple, going to offer their sacrifices, they take delight in doing those things, okay? And then, verse 3, here we go. Now they say, why have we fasted? And have you not seen? Hey, God, we're doing all these good things. I got my fish sticker, I got my cross, I got my Bible, I'm going to church 3 times a week. Why are you not taking notice of me? Why have we afflicted our souls and you take no notice? There's a phrase again, afflicted our souls. Why have we gone and fasted and done all these things? But now notice what God turns around and says with regards to all these things, especially the fasting, the afflicting your soul. In fact, in the day of your fast, you find pleasure and exploit all your laborers. Now, what was going on in this time period, and what they were getting rebuked for, and Jesus later on rebukes them as well, is when they were fasting, they were actually putting on sackcloth, and they were putting ash on their faces to make themselves look pale. And somebody looked at them, oh man, you're sick. No, I'm just fasting. We did exactly the same thing. Oh, brother, 3 o'clock in the morning, I just couldn't sleep, and God had me out praying for you. And now all of a sudden you're like looking tired, and it's exactly what these guys are doing. They're taking delight in trying to put across that they are so righteous, right? So then he goes on and he says, and you exploit your laborers. So you want to fast on one hand and play the churchgoer, and yet on the other hand you're exploiting your laborers. And this is what it's going to come down to. Then he goes on in verse 4 and he says, indeed you fast with strife and debate, and you strike with the fist of wickedness. You will not fast as you do this day, to make your voice heard on high. He goes on and he says, in verse 1, is it a fast that I have chosen, a day for man to afflict his soul? And then he goes on and he talks about the sackcloth and that. In verse 6 now, he says, is this not the fast that I have chosen? So here is rebuking the nation of Israel for the way that they were fasting, because they've chosen to fast by abstinence from food and making it known to everybody that they're abstaining from food and I'm being a holy, righteous Christian, or Jewish person, as it were. But here God says, this is the fast that I've actually chosen. To loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, and that you break every yoke. Is it not to share your bread with the hungry? And that you bring to your house the poor who are cast out, when you see the naked, that you cover him, and not hide yourself from your own flesh. So God, and this, you'll pick up on some of the rabbis have actually turned around and said this. And they said, you know what, if you're going to fast, take the meal that you would have eaten, and now go and give it to somebody that needs to be fed. And I think that is huge. I mean, that to me is a gem from the Jewish rabbis. What good is it to just go hungry? I've always heard it taught that the idea behind fasting is you deny yourself food, and in the denial of food, when you should be eating and you're reminded of your hunger, that's when you turn to God and pray. But yet, what does God say? Love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And then, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And then the Jewish people turned around to Jesus and they said, oh, fair enough, who's my neighbor? And he gave them the whole parable of the Good Samaritan. So the neighbor is the person that's in need. And there's the true meaning of the fast right there. That you go and give or take care of the person that's in need. So then it goes on, and it says in verse 8, then your light shall break forth like the morning. Interesting, Jesus turned around to us and says, let your light so shine before men that they will see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. But here, in this fast that we are used to and where we've been taught, and also how the Jewish people were fasting, it was, hey, look at my works, look at my good works. And, oh wow, he's a righteous Christian. Look at how anemic he looks from not eating. He's been fasting for 40 days. And what? They don't glorify my Father in heaven. They're now, wow, look at Rory. And that's not what it's all about. I wish I could fast for 40 days and lose 40 pounds. But back into Leviticus. So on this day of atonement now, they are to afflict their souls. And we were in verse 29. And it says here, in verse 28. And it goes on and it says, and you shall do no work on that same day, for it is the day of atonement, to make atonement before the Lord your God. For any person who is not afflicted in soul on that same day, he shall be cut off from his people. Why? So if you're not fasting, God's going to cut you off from your people? No, that's not what it's talking about. If you're not afflicted of soul, if you're not cognizant of, hey, I've done wrong, are you God? It's amazing that when God comes into your life, you start to realize, and the closer you get to God, the more you realize, whoa, how far off the mark I actually am. It's been said that the closer you get to the light, the more you see yourself. I mean, everybody looks beautiful in the dark room, but switch on those lights, and you get to see your real self. The closer you get to Christ, the more time you spend with Him, you realize how much more you actually need Him. And yet we've got it backwards in the sense that we think, oh well, I've been studying the Word for 50 years, I've been a good Christian for 110 years, I don't really need God anymore. It's the opposite way around. I think the closer you get to Him, the more you really realize, boy oh boy, I really and truly need Him. That thought or idea is captured by Paul when Paul turns around and he says, the things that I wish to do, I do not do. And the things that I do, I wish I did not do. Oh, what a wretched man am I, who can save me? And this is paraphrasing a bunch of verses, and he says, nothing but the blood of Christ. Paul recognizes that. And Paul knew the scriptures. So then it goes on and says, so any person who doesn't afflict the soul, doesn't take notice of who they are, they're going to be cut off from their people. Then in verse 30, and any person who does any work on that same day, that person I will destroy from amongst the people. This is different to the other feasts or the other appointed times. This is any work. Beforehand it was any work that you were paid for. Now it's any work. This is the day that you really are to reflect. What does this Day of Atonement speak of? Future tense. We spoke, the previous one, Feast of Trumpets, spoke of the rapture. Now, the rapture started with a blowing of the trumpet, as we just saw in this feast, right? And it started this next 10 days for this Feast of Weeks. Well, the rapture, the blowing of the trumpet, we will hear the call, we will hear the blowing of the trumpet, the church will be raptured. It starts off the tribulation period. So that's what this is now speaking of. So now, for the Jew, remember I said to you, this is not about the Gentile, it's about the Jewish person and the Christian. So now the Christian, the church, is up in heaven. The Jewish person is now going to go through this next 7 years called the tribulation period. The Bible also refers to it as Jacob's trouble. Jacob's trouble because it's the Jewish people. So now they've got to go through this tribulation period. What are they going to be doing in this tribulation period? Remember when Christ was on the cross, 12 o'clock? God turned the lights on, said, hey guys, time out, think about what you've done. That tribulation period, the same thing is going to happen there. It's a little time out to consider what you've done. So when Christ comes back the second time, the Jewish nation as a whole are going to turn around and say, yes, Messiah, Mashiach, and they're going to accept Christ as Lord and Savior. And that is when the Jewish nation will be redeemed back to Christ and Savior. So, this, and the no work, I camped on that in verse 30. Today, and up to today, the Jewish nation and the way of the Jewish mind is works orientated. I will work and I'll keep the law, and I will work and I'll go and do my sacrifices. And when that fell apart, when the sacrificial system disappeared because the temple disappeared, they changed it up a little bit and they said, okay, your good deeds now outweigh your bad deeds. So now they work at doing good deeds. You want to go to Jerusalem? This Yom Kippur, best time to go. Because when you stop in Jerusalem and you turn around and you say, hey, where is this? Oh, come on, I'll show you where it is. A good deed. Because they're considering, they've got 10 days to think about all the stuff they've done wrong to get right with God for their atonement. Anybody that they see on the street, they're handing out burgers and money and all the rest. Good time to go to Israel on this day. So, so they work. So, their religion is works orientated, still to this day. But yet God is saying, okay, in this time of trouble, it doesn't matter how much of the law you want to uphold, doesn't matter how many good deeds you're going to do, your work's not going to cut it. And it was exactly the same. I mean, that was basically the admonition that Christ gave us as well. It's not by works. It's by faith alone. That's it. End of story. So then he goes on and he says, verse 31, you shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. It shall be to you a Sabbath of solemn rest, and you shall afflict your souls on the 9th day of the month. At evening, from evening to evening, you shall celebrate your Sabbath. There's a command. So for 9 days, they'll now give attention to their relationship with God, what they've done, what they haven't done. On the 10th day, this is the day of celebration now. And that's speaking about prophetically in typology when Christ comes back the second time and parties on. And that's the start of the millennial reign. It's just amazing to me to see how these feasts, as it were, lay out the whole prophetic calendar from creation through to the end. You know, here's a little gem for you. You know, when Jesus was talking, when his disciples were asking him about the rapture and things like that. Give me a second. It's in Matthew. And Jesus turns around and he says, he starts giving them the example, and he says that, there's two men working in the field. In Matthew chapter 24. I'm just backtracking a little bit to the previous festival where we spoke about with regards to the rapture. This is Jesus now speaking about the rapture. So in chapter 24 of Matthew, Jesus speaking in verse 40, he says, then 2 men will be in the field. One will be taken and the other one left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill. one will be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. Now, when he said this to those disciples of his, because they were Jewish and they knew their customs, they knew exactly what he was speaking about. To you and I, all we've got to rely on is watching Left Behind series or something like that, okay? Because we don't know their customs. And that's why we've got such a problem deciphering the Bible, because we look at everything, like Mr. Chuck says, from the 20th century through an American set of eyes. You can't do that. You've got to go back to the Jewish perspective in that time period. So, in the temple, first thing in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, first thing that happened is they would blow the shofar. And it would tell you, hey, temple's open. Then at 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock, they would blow the shofar. And it would be a summoning of calling people to come to the temple, right? So, 2 men in the field. One's a Jew, one's a Gentile. The trumpet blows. What's going to happen? One's going to go off to temple, and the other one's going to stay working. 2 women are grinding in a mill. Trumpet blows. One's going to go to temple, one's going to stay grinding at the mill. That's what he's talking about. He's giving, Jesus, when he speaks, yes, he spoke in parables, but he also spoke very directly to the situation, and he used practical examples around him all the time. So when he was telling, what he was telling the disciples there is, hey, when that trumpet sounds, the person who is tuned into the things of God, the person that's used to going to the temple, the person that's waiting to hear that call, is going to hear that call. He's going to hear that trumpet. He's going to hear the call, and that's the person that's going to go. The other person is still going to be sitting in the field, sitting at the mill grinding stuff. They're not going to hear the call, they're not going to go. A lot of us freak out with regards to this whole thing of the rapture in the book of Revelation and all the rest of it. It's not something to be afraid of. The Bible does say, however, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And the reason it does that is don't go and fool yourself. Just because you've got the fish stick and the t-shirt and the cross and the big Bible under your arm, just as God rebuked those people for playing church, we're going to get rebuked as well. In the sense of if we just play in church instead of actually really seeking after God. That's why Jesus said that the one road is very, very, very narrow, and few are going to find it. I think heaven is not going to be as overpopulated as we think it is. Perfect place for coronavirus is going to be social distancing. Not many people around. I think we're going to be very surprised as to who is not there, and even more surprised as to who is there. Because the person that we think, man, that person, they're not even welcome in our church, and that person really and truly got a heart for God, even though he hasn't got the fish stick and everything else, that person is the person that's going to be there. And I think the churches are going to be pretty full business as usual, unfortunately. And this is a warning to wake up. Now, I started off and I went through all those feasts beforehand, and I pointed out how every single one of them came to pass perfectly, not just the day, but the exact hour. If those have happened, then it stands to reason that the rapture and the tribulation period is also going to happen. That's why I think it is, I forget the stats now, I think it said 1/3, and 1/3 of the entire Bible is prophecy. No other religion does that. If 1/3 of this book is prophetic, and the vast majority of all that prophecy history has shown us has already come to pass, then surely the last little bit that is still to come, i.e. the rapture, the tribulation period, and the millennial reign, then surely that is going to come to pass as well. It's a scary thought, it really is. And when Jesus sums it up and he says, pray that you escape the time of tribulation. I think when he was saying that to his disciples, it's kind of like a wake-up call. Hey, don't just play church. Be the church. Don't just fast. Take your burger that you would have eaten and go and give it to someone. Hands on. I think I made the point. But as I said to you in the very, very beginning, I find great solace in this word. And the solace that I find in the word is it's all about me. I mean, we're all selfish creatures. And the beautiful thing about religion, it's all about me. I don't know what you guys are going to do, but for me, it's all about me. It's my relationship with God. And when I dig into that Bible, He speaks to me. And when I'm in trouble, He settles me down. When I'm scared, He settles me down. And when I'm with other people, He's given me gems that I can share with other people. And through that, He's given me relationships. He's given me family, which is gone. He's given me so much. Shout out my relationship. We wouldn't have our relationship if it wasn't for our relationship with God. I can tell you that right now. We would have been done over, not except for us, but for God. He has given us so much through this, the Word, and just a belief in Him and a following Him in everything. So when I started with that statement, I was being very, very sincere in the sense of how much I get out of the Word, and it's available to everyone. Dig into it. Let's pray. Father God, we thank You for Your Word, Lord. Thank You so much that You've recorded for us the whole of history. Not just what's happened, but what's going to happen in the future. Lord, the prophecy that You've chosen to record thousands of years before it even played out, and then history shows us the truth of it. Through that, You've shown us that You are the only and eternal God, that You know the beginning from the end. Lord, that we don't have to question, we don't have to doubt. You've also shown us through the cross and the resurrection that there is a life after death, that there is an eternity. And Lord, that You've also told us over and over again that it's Your will that none of us should perish, but that all of us should have everlasting life. And yet You've also warned us that that way is narrow. Lord, just as this Day of Atonement spoke and still speaks to the Jewish nation to really, really consider their ways, I pray that it will be the case with us this evening, Lord. Lord, that You put Your finger on anything that You'd have us deal with, whether it's an attitude, whether it's a habit, whether it's just getting lazy and not spending time with You, whatever it is. I pray that Your Spirit would just put your finger on it, bring it to our attention. Lord, that we have the fortitude and just the love for You to actually take care of business. So we thank You again, Lord. In Jesus' name.